first thing I want to do is get my H0 and my H1. We know the first one's going to be an equal. What is it saying that we're equal to?
703.5.
The mean FICO score is 703.5. So now we have to figure out what is the one that we're doing a sample of. Well, that one is going to be greater than 703.5. So 714 is larger than the one that we're given, which means this is a right tail test because it's pointing to the right. So our mean of our sample is 714.2. Our standard deviation is 83.2. They gave me that the alpha is 0.05, and we also did a random sample of 40, so my N is going to be 40. So that's all the data that I really got out of the problem. I don't need to know how old the people were. I don't need to know how much money they made. I don't need to know the range of FICO scores. This is what I need to know. Okay? Now, from that, I like to draw the picture. Okay? So from that, I am going to draw my little picture. Because it has a standard deviation, I know that this is going to be a z-test. I go to my table 7, and I need to know the degrees of freedom minus 1. So, N minus 1 is 40 minus 1 is 39. So I'm using a degree of freedom of 39, and I'm using an alpha of 0.05. So if I go to my table 7, and I'm doing degrees of freedom of 39 with an alpha of 0.05. What does that give you? 1.685? Is that what y'all got? So 1.685. And because it's a right tail test, that means we're shading to the right, which means I need that positive. I wrote Z, I meant T. Standard deviation, so that should be a t-test, not a z-test. So I'm going to use the positive because I'm shading to the right. This is going to be my reject area. This is going to be my not reject area, or my keep area. So now I need to find that other value, that data value. So I'm going to go into my calculator, and I'm going to do stat test number 2. Stat test number 2, which is your t-test. So, stat test number 2. Going to come down. That is 703.5, 714.2. Standard deviation of 83.2. My sample size is 40. This time I am doing greater than. So this is what I would be plugging into my calculator. And then when I hit calculate, my T is what I'm going to put on the graph. My P is if I'm comparing it to the alpha. So my T, this would be 0. So my T is going to be 0.81. That's where my T would go. So do I reject it or not reject it? I do not reject it. Now, I can do a second test just to verify. My second test would be asking, is P less than alpha? So, if I'm doing that test, I would be looking at this value. My P value is 0.210. Is that less than alpha, which is 0.05. Is 21 cents less than 5 cents? No. So we are not going to reject. We only reject it if P is less than alpha. P's low, the hoe must go. If P's low, we need to reject it. She got to go. So either way we do it, they should give us the same exact answer. Make sense? Just a different kind of test because we have that standard deviation. Now, if I come down, you can see it prettier. They just really didn't show you right there where it came from off that this came from the table. From the table. And this is showing you that it's in the non-shaded area. And we do not, and then there's the other check to show you that it's not less than. So that is it for 10.3. So the good news is I have given you every ounce of knowledge that you need for Math 120. So you know everything I know. Okay? Now, what we're going to do the rest of the class is we are going to start looking at the review spreadsheet. And the way that I got to this, under those little tabs, there's a tab that's called Final Exam Information. And under that Final Exam Information button, there are 3 things. There's the spreadsheet, like I've given you for every single test. Okay? That spreadsheet has 33 questions. That's the spreadsheet. Then, there is an 18-page packet that's blank, that doesn't have any answers. And then there's an 18-page packet that has the answers. So there's those 3 things. So if I come over here to Final Exam Information, the first one that's out there is this, just the review sheet, the spreadsheet. Then the review blank and the solutions review. The review blank is this without the answers. It's kind of like a practice test. Then the solutions would be this with the answers on it. I would recommend printing the blank one because if you had the answers, you're going to sit back and go, oh yeah, that's the right answer. Of course it's the freaking right answer because it's right there. Okay? You're going to need it without the answers because you're going to be blank because it's blank. You need to make sure you know it. So, what I've done is I have taken those 18 pages and just to show you where they came from, I took the spreadsheet and I took the first line off the spreadsheet, and the first line off the spreadsheet says, classify the variable as quantitative or qualitative. Page 11, problems 15 through 22. It's exactly like I did off of, not the last test, but the test before. I went to page 11 in the book, and I copied problems 15 through 22. Number 2 on the spreadsheet says, determine whether the quantitative variable is discrete or continuous. Problems 23 through 30. So I went to that page, and I pulled off problems 23 through 30. Then we go to the next one. Now, for this one, see how it's 9E for 3 and 9F for 4? So I'm doing both of these problems at one time. So you're going to have a problem on your test that says determine the percentage from a frequency histogram. That's going to be one question. And then another question that says identify the shape of the distribution. So down here you have one question that says determine the percentage and one question that says describe the shape of the distribution. So that is 2 different questions on your test. Does that make sense? So I'm putting up there and then down here is the question. So let's kind of start going over because we're going to have all day today and all Monday. Now, if you feel like you don't need a review, you can pack up and go. That's fine. But if you need a review, make sure you turn in my formula sheet before you go, though. If you don't need a review, you can go, but if you need a review, you can stay. It's totally up to you. Or if you need to ask specific questions and then go, that's totally fine. But when you study for your exam, don't study old tests. Don't study old homework. This is what you need to study. I had the exam in my hand when I wrote this. This is what you need to be studying. Okay? All right, do we have specific questions, or do you want me just to go through? What do y'all prefer? You just leave them up there. What do y'all prefer? Just go through? Okay. Do we remember the difference between quantitative and qualitative?
Yeah.
Okay, what was qualitative? It was qualities. So I told you that it was like letters. It was letter answers. And the way I remember that was the L in letters. Quantitative had an N in it, so those were like number answers. So it was either a letter answer or a number answer. So if I say nation of origin, where did you come from? If those answers going to have letters in it, or are those answers going to have numbers in it? Letters. So it's going to be like, I'm from America, or I'm from Africa, or I'm from Asia, or wherever. Those are going to have letters in it, so that's going to be qualitative. How many siblings do you have? That's a number answer, so that's going to be quantitative. I have 5 siblings. I have no siblings. I have 1 sibling. Those are number answers. Grams of carbohydrates in a donut. The one with the N. There's 72 grams. Number on a football player's jersey. L or N? That one is going to be the L, because remember we said even though it's a number, it's not really a number, it's a name. 23 is Michael Jordan. Okay, so that one is not a number. It is his name. Number of unpopped kernels in a bag of popcorn. That's a number, quantitative. Assessed value on a house. A number. Phone number. Letter or number? That's a letter. When you dial up that, you get your name, you get your address. Student ID number. That's a letter. It's kind of like when I type in your ID, your name pops up. So even though it's a number, it's really not a number, it's a name. Okay, so I gave you 8 or 10 of those, but you're only going to have 1 on your test. Okay? Number 2, tell me if it's discrete or if it's continuous. Discrete meant that it can only be certain numbers. For example, your hat size, or your shoe size, or your pant size. You can't go to the store and say, I need a shoe size of a 7.23. You can either get a 7 or a 7.5 or an 8. There's only certain sizes you can get. Continuous is any number. So goals scored in a season. That one is discrete. You can only score 1 goal or 2 goals or 3 goals. You can't score 1.279 goals. So that one's discrete. Volume of water lost each day through a leaky faucet. Continuous. That one is continuous. Length in minutes of a country song.
Continuous.
They said continuous. It's according to what you're listening on. You know, if you're listening on the radio, it would be 1 minute, 2 seconds, 1 minute, 3 seconds, 1 minute, 4 seconds. But if you have a fancy stopwatch, you could go down to however many milliseconds. Number of sequoia trees. Discrete. You can't have a part of a tree. You either have a whole tree or no tree. High temperature on a randomly selected day. I would say discrete. They said continuous is according if you have a fancy thermometer. Internet connection speed, they said continuous. Points scored in an or NCAA basketball game, discrete. You can score 1 point or 2 points, not 1.5 points. Air pressure in pounds per square inch in a tire, continuous. And like I said, you're only gonna have one of those. You're not gonna have 5 of them or 6 of them. All right, and when you're studying these, study them out of order. Don't go through the 18 pages and do them in the same order every single time, because then you're training yourself that the first 2 questions are going to be discrete continuous or interval, and then when you see the first question is a binomial, you're going to freak out. All right, these next 2 questions, determine a percentage and identify the shape of a distribution. So that's kind of what the directions are going to say. So this one says an experiment was done and 2 fair dice were thrown 100 times. The sum of the pips, or the little dots, were recorded. The following frequency histogram gives the results. Determine the percentage of times a 7 was observed. So here's a 7. What would my answer be? Or how would I get the answer? Very good. Now, easy for this one, and you need to hope that on your test you have one like this. They told you right there that all of these added up is going to equal 100. So they were nice to you. They told you that all of them added up was 100. So if we come here, that's 15. So it's going to be 15 over 100. So had you just said 15, you actually would have gotten lucky on this problem. But it's really not 15 because it's 15%. It's 15 because it's 15 out of 100 people. Describe the shape of the distribution. If I look at that, what kind of shape is that? I would say normal. Or bell-shaped, however they want to word it, symmetric. All right, for the next one, determine the percentage of percentage of time 2 cars were sold. Well, up here, it didn't tell me. So I'm kind of screwed. I'm going to have to do what y'all say. 4 plus 2 plus 9 plus blah, blah, blah. So if I come over here and I add up 4 plus 2 plus 9 plus 8 plus 12 plus 8 plus 5 plus 2 plus 1 plus 0 plus 1, that is going to give me a total of 52 because it didn't give it to me. Now, we are doing 2 time cars, which is 9. So it's going to be 9 over 52. So when I come to my calculator, 9 over 52 is going to give me, and they want it as a percentage, so what is my percentage going to be? 17.3%, 17%. The good news is all of your answers are multiple choice. So all of your answers are either going to be whole numbers or they're all going to be decimals. What is the shape of this distribution? Skewed which way? This one is going to be skewed right. And like I said, these are 2 different questions on your test. All right. All right, this next one says, what percent of students had an IQ of at least 130? At least 130. So is it going to be 130 or more, or is it going to be less than 130? At least, so if I have at least $130 in my pocket, I have $130 or more. So I'm going to start here and go. So 130 or more, so I'm gonna be using the 8, the 2, and the 1. And for percentage, it's gonna be that over the total. So I'm gonna be doing this or more, so it's gonna be 8 plus 2 plus 1 over, and I glance up here and I'm sad because it doesn't give me the total. So when I have to come up here and add all of those numbers, and I know it's kind of fuzzy up here, it gives me a total of 200. So 8, 9, 10, 11, so it will be 11 over 200, which is going to be 5.5%. It ended up being 0.055, but we gotta get our whoop whoop on to give it a percentage. What shape of the distribution is this? That one's gonna be right skewed. What's the one below it? Symmetric, veil, normal. However they're gonna word it. And then, what's the shape of this one? Right. Okay, so all of those are two different questions. What is the shape and what is the percentage? Sometimes they'll give you the percentage in the top, and sometimes they won't. And y'all, one of the answers in the multiple choice is gonna be 11. Because we know you're just gonna add up those tops and forget to divide by the bottom. So one of those answers are gonna suck you in. So just pay attention. All right, number 5. Determine the mode of a variable. Determine the mode of a variable. What does mode mean? Who? The one that appears the most. Which one appears the most? So, what I would do, like it would make most sense to me, is I would list, okay, these are our, what are we doing? This is our diagnosis, and this is the frequency. So we have cancer, we have gunshot, we have assault, we have motor vehicle, we have a fall, gunshot, motor vehicle, and we have assault. So those are all of our diagnoses that we're gonna have that's gonna kill us. So if I come over here, cancer is only one person died of cancer. Gunshot is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Gunshot, where is this, it's rolling?
I know. And then assault is 1. Tell me if I'm missing some. Motor, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 for motor vehicle. Fall is going to be 2. And congestive heart failure is going to be 1. Now, what I usually do is I add them up to make sure that the total is going to equal this, to make sure that I didn't screw anything up. And then, now, your answer's not 8. I don't want to know how many times the most appeared. I want to know what appeared the most. So what thing appeared the most? Gunshot wounds. So my answer is going to be gunshot wounds. Not how many times it appeared, but what killed off the most people. That's what I'm looking for. So for this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So liberal is going to be 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Moderate is going to be 11. This one?
And the second one, third one down.
Oh, thank you, 12. And then conservative is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So which one is the mode?
7,
Where did I miss that one?
down at the bottom left.
Damn it.
Yeah, how they get
All right, so my mode is going to be moderate. And 12 may be one of the answers, and you're gonna sit there and go, oh my gosh, is it how many times, or is it, but mode means what thing appears the most, not how many times it appears the most. Okay, do we remember how to find variance? Okay, and this is why all these people laugh, and they think they know all this stuff. Variance is your standard deviation squared. Variance is your standard deviation squared. Now, on your formula sheet, let's see if I can pull up your formula sheet. I do have that on your formula sheet, right here.
Make the formula sheet, or was it supplied by the school?
We make it as a department. Yeah. So there's some things that one teacher will say, I want, and one teacher will say, I don't want. So we, as a department, decide, and as a committee, we decide what to put on there and what not to put on there.
Okay.
So some teachers win out and some teachers don't.
Oh, so you were talking about there being programs on calculators. My last math class put the quad program on there.
That's fine. You can have the quad for Math 110.
Okay.
So that's not gonna help you in this class. So the quad and fixed calc are the only two that you should have. So up until now, we're on question 6 on the final exam. And remember, your exam is not in this order. But as far as the spreadsheet, we're on question 6. And this is the first time we've used the formula sheet, if we use it. So ours was sample variance. Let me see if sample variance is on there.
Yeah, right
Is it?
underneath it.
Oh crap, I grabbed the wrong one. Thank you. Sample variance. Send. Alright. Just cover that little thing right up and nobody will ever know. There we go. So it is on the formula sheet that sample variance is your standard deviation squared. Now, in this problem, it asks for range, sample variance, and sample standard deviation. On your test, I only want to know variance. So you do not need to know range and sample standard deviation. You only need to know sample variance. That's it. That's the only thing I need you to know. So, how are we going to get the standard deviation? Stat edit. So I'm going to do stat edit. Go to the top, clear me out. Go to the top, clear me out. Down here. Number 11, stat, edit, and then what am I going to do? One bar stats. So I'm going to do stat calc, one bar stats. Now, stat, calc, one bar stats, and the only thing I'm looking for is the standard deviation because I have to square that. Now, I can manually square that or I can copy it over and paste it and square it. Does not matter to me. So if you just want to do 5.13358 squared, I mean, you can copy the whole thing, or you can just go out. I usually go out 4 or 5 places to make sure that I don't grab too little and it be too far off. So, I can do 5.13358 and square it.